What's going on, everyone? My name is Darren Becket, CXO at Element Longevity, and today we're going to take a different path into nutrition, performance, energy, recovery, and really the concept of how the gut microbiome supports our health in general. And so today's webinar is called "How to Train Your Gut." And, specifically looking at, okay, how can an athlete, increase performance? But really at the end of the day, this all comes down to basic human health. When our health is aligned with the activities and our life, we're certainly capable of doing a lot more in life. And so some of the things you'll hear today do surround performance athletics. But if you're just looking to be a little bit more knowledgeable on the gut microbiome space, this is also going to be a really great webinar for you. So bring your questions. We'll have them at the end. So write them down if you have a question halfway through or something. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here with you all. Once again, my name is Darren Becket. And just a very quick background on my history. So I spent a decade and a half in performance athletics. I played baseball at the collegiate D1 level. And really got interested in the gut microbiome science once I started training other athletes as a physical therapist and coach. And over the last decade and a half, that experience for me has really shifted my approach to not only the health and well-being of a performance athlete, but once again, the health and performance of ourselves. Seeing ourselves as athletes, not that you need to get over the line quicker, but, a lot of the modern day stresses and also the stress that we put on ourselves has created a interesting dilemma for humanity, and that leads to the gut microbiome. And so in my journey of supporting individuals and athletes in their health journey, being able to see the gut microbiome has really shifted my perspective. And so we're going to get into the presentation here in a second, but I just want to bring that up because the gut microbiome being a space where we not only digest the food that our body uses, that our cells use, but also the internal pharmacy that the gut microbiome is, the gut lining, and how that supports our well-being and our ability to absorb nutrients and to give every organ, every system in the body a fighting chance at managing our stress levels. And, that could be, hey, I'm running 100 miles and that's the stress, right? Or it could be, hey, I'm just wanting to make sure that I don't have to use the bathroom 50 times a day. These are all equal in their approach. And my hope today is that you're going to get something that you didn't know before out of it, and then also a pathway forward, something that you can take with you in your everyday life, and have a bit more success when you're trying to investigate how to be healthier and how to have more energy and less, and have a reduction of symptomology as well. Okay, so pull up the presentation here. Cool. So once again, today's presentation is about how to train your gut. And really what we're saying is we want to build resilience from the inside out. Like I just said, the gut microbiome is an internal pharmacy. That's something that modern science is starting to bring more to the limelight. You may be seeing in your supplement aisle at the grocery store that there is an acknowledgement of probiotics doing something more than just for digestion. And we'll get into that. We'll talk about prebiotics. We'll talk about postbiotics, and we'll talk about, your plan to train your gut. Cool. And so what does resilience look like? What does gut resilience look like? And so, if we take this from the top, the gut microbiome is technically a stress organ. Science is still trying to understand, not the importance, because we've kind of landed on, oh my gosh, the gut microbiome is really important, but more about how do we balance it, right? And so you may have heard things like, okay, take a probiotic, or, maybe you should start looking at ingesting more fiber into your diet, or, okay, maybe I need to start looking at, what are the foods that are going to be right for me? is bananas the right food? Is it not? Maybe you're hearing, hey, I need to eat a more diverse amount of foods. Hey, when you're at the grocery store, you're looking at fruits and vegetables. What are the fruits and vegetables that are right for me? This is all happening within the gut microbiome space. And that space is trillions of microbes. It's also bacteria, but I like to use the word microbes, sounds a little less negative. And these microbes are responsible for the symbiotic relationship that we have with our health. When this microbial universe is not in balance, our bodies don't work as well. And that's not a silo, meaning like it's not just about heart health or just about digestion. The gut microbiome and those microbes that are living inside of us, when they are balanced, when there is a diverse amount of community of microbes, like we are able to do so much more in life. And so that's the mindset that I want you to bring into this. Not you're going to find the perfect solution, but that you're going to have an arsenal of vocabulary and understanding that helps you see things just a little bit differently, helps you understand where your triggers are and what to do about them. Okay, and so the big idea here is gut resilience. And this relies mainly on three factors, like I said already. Barrier function, so that's your gut microbiome and the barrier that the nutrients and the metabolites and all of the things, so to speak, that support bodily function, short-chain fatty acids, acetate production, amino acids, vitamins. I bet you didn't know that your gut produces vitamins. You take a vitamin, but your gut, if it has the right bacteria, it'll produce those vitamins for you. And so this universe of microbial balance is something that we want to stay consistent with, meaning when the gut microbiome is balanced for a longer period of time, it builds resilience. And that resilience is carried on in your everyday life in a number of ways. Could be optimal athletic performance, or it could be being able to, support yourself throughout the day as you navigate, any types of, challenges in life. Okay, so what is gut permeability? Okay, and so if you're an athlete, you've probably heard of gut permeability as the concept of when I work out really hard, right? Blood is going to be mostly in the brain and in the legs. Okay, and so that means less blood in the gut microbiome. And when there's less blood near the gut microbiome, there's less of that ability to transfer nutrients, absorb nutrients, and then bring them to the areas that need them most. Also, it's about maintaining a healthy digestion system. That is kind of obvious in the fact of the gut microbiome from the previous 20 to 30 years of science. But you could think really, okay, is my body able to handle the nutrients that I am ingesting? And that could even be fiber and good foods. Sometimes we can eat good foods that are good for us, but our bodies don't react or respond in the way that we want. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with that food. It could be that the gut barrier itself is not strong enough to support those foods that are coming through the digestive tract. And so one of the things I've learned in the last few years working with the scientists, a gut microbiome scientist out of the University of Sanford Pres, is that we have kind of two gut microbiomes, okay? And we have the one that is created at birth. And so think of it as like, okay, your first gut microbiome is actually microbes, and they form a barrier. We know these microbes to be Bifidobacterium infantis or Bifidobacterium longum infantis. They come from the same genus, but these are the microbes that basically create your first gut microbiome at birth. And then as we age, right, we develop a kind of barrier around that. And that would kind of be if you were thinking of epigenetics in the DNA space and thinking, okay, I can change my epigenetics based on the environmental factors that I have in my life, right? This gut microbiome can also be changed and adapted to certain things like, okay, my environment, where do I live? Do I live in a city? Do I live in the countryside? What's my stress levels like? Was there a moment in my previous history that changed my gut microbiome? Maybe not for the better. Maybe it was food poisoning or the norovirus or long COVID or something in that space. But really, the solution needs to be the same. We need to bring balance back to these two very important gut microbiomes. And we need to supply our bodies with the right microbes that are human native to ourselves, as well as the consistency of having the foods and the micronutrients, not the macros, the micros that support the life force of those microbes. Cool. And then also just to reiterate, right, things that can influence the change of the gut microbiome, heat, sleep, dietary changes, but it also could be like, um, going through a stressful time. We don't want to negate that our ability to handle stress is so deeply connected to our bodies. It's important to recognize that our bodies have a great deal of effect, both directionally towards what we can achieve and also how well we recover when multiple challenges seem to pile up. Okay. And why training challenges the barrier? Earlier, I said, right, when we're stressed and when, if you're an athlete and you're performing at a high level, or just pushing yourself to a higher level, right, the blood goes to the brain and the legs, and there's less blood in the gut microbiome, which means less ability for there to be resilience, balance, and diversity. Okay. And so if we just think of this really simply as a mechanic to handling stress, it becomes a little less difficult to understand. Darren, oh, I have trillions of microbes. I can't. That's like looking into the stars. How am I supposed to navigate that? Well, we do understand that there are mechanics to what stresses the gut microbiome, right? That could be, hey, I've just been on a huge run or in a set of training blocks, and I'm taking in a lot more goos. That's a lot more sugar. That's a lot more carbohydrates. Like, can my body handle that? Now, also, what are the stressors that are the mechanisms, right? Okay, when I eat this, I tend to flush in the restroom, right? Okay, write that down. That's a mechanical stress. And it could be even, like I said earlier, a food that might be good for you, like kale, right? Oh, I need to eat more kale. But is it the right timing for that kale? And does your microbial universe support those types of nutrients in your body? Also, the gut microbiome is like a fingerprint to ourselves. So everyone has a unique microbial universe. We do share traits, especially in families and in communities, etc. However, right, some mechanical stress may also just be unique to you. And so it's important, if you're using, say, AI systems to understand your training blocks and understand your nutrition, that you bring in some of your own data to support what you're learning in that process. Okay, so this may be a term that you've heard before, and if it's not, right, it's a very simple way to look at, am I balanced or am I not balanced? Okay, so alpha diversity is basically, is your gut balanced? Is it diverse? Do you have a diverse amount of microbes that support many functions? Okay, and so for us athletes, right, because we're taking in so much nutrition and we're trying to dial in our macros, or we're not, and we're just feeding ourselves a lot, right? You may find that your gut challenges could be around, well, I eat this type of food a lot, and therefore, especially when I'm running or when I'm biking or when I'm lifting, And so what happens is the microbes that love that food, they dominate your gut microbiome. And that doesn't look bad in the short term. But once again, if that microbial universe starts to not become diverse, it becomes undiversified, it's going to have subsequent challenges that the body then has to deal with. And what does the body do when it has to deal with more of the direct association with that stress? It's going to try and fight it. If your gut microbiome is imbalanced, now you're in this kind of autoimmune fight between yourself. And so once again, we want to look at, okay, not just how many fruits and vegetables am I eating, but what are those triggers? And then later here in the presentation, I'll share with you what you can do about it when we're looking at, okay, adding certain nutrition back into our diet. Quick aside on the alpha diversity comments. I think this is something really important that, alpha diversity is becoming a bit of a buzzword. And that's really great because, the more people understand that the gut microbiome runs on diversity as a balancing structure, the more we start to look at our lives and say, where are we diverse in our lives? Are we diverse, in our relationships? Are we diverse with our foods? Are we diverse in our thought patterns and our ability to handle multiple things and navigate them? And I bring that in because the mind, right, there's the gut-brain connection, or you could call it the brain-gut connection. Basically, the gut has a direct connection, a channel of blood that goes directly to the brain. And so your gut microbiome is producing 90% of your serotonin and your dopamine. And then the brain is then sending that cell signaling back into the body and saying, oh, we can handle more stress, so don't freak out, don't alarm more often. And what you may see in common, you'll see commercials about alpha diversity soon here, about, eating more fiber and feeding the right microbes. But the thing we need to be careful with is that if you think about, okay, I need to eat more sweet potatoes because sweet potatoes has a particular prebiotic or a vitamin that my microbiome is going to benefit from, just keep in mind, you're going to have to eat a lot of sweet potatoes to get that particular nutrient out of the sweet potato and into the gut microbiome. So if you are thinking or you are acting from, okay, I need to eat more vegetables, or my doctor says I need to eat this particular, be more diverse, more bananas in my diet, just know that it would take a lot of those nutrients, like a lot, every day to make a significant change in your gut microbiome. And so once again, part of the solution here is a large dose of micronutrients that are going to be consistent in our digestive system and get to our lower digestive tract, into our colon, where most of those microbes live. Okay, and so what is the barrier diversity loop? We just talked about this in terms of the gut-brain connection. And so just to make a quick aside or a finishing comment on the benefits that the gut microbiome has, think about it as a feedback loop to the rest of your body. A lot of cultures, they say that the gut is the second brain, and in some cultures, even the first brain. And so, right, when we want to calm ourselves, we want to bring ourselves deeper into our spine, deeper into our gut microbiome, but we also want to provide that feedback loop to all of the different systems. And so if you can't create a stable environment for yourself in your world, or you're a performance athlete and your whole drive is to create an unstable environment because that's where thriving at the peak level of performance happens, you're going to want to have a gut microbiome that stays stable, or else there's going to be a lot of fluctuation, right? And that fluctuation is also not good for the heart. It's not good for the brain. And so even though this is about athletics and the gut microbiome science, right, I'm bringing in some of that concepts of mindfulness, because as a stress organ, mindfulness is really important into navigating our ability to handle more stress, be more resilient, have lower inflammation, have less symptomology challenges, and be able to say, okay, great, what's the next thing that I could do? Is it that next race? Is it that next training block? Is it just being able to make sure that I'm not using the bathroom as often, or having that urgency, or having that uncomfortableness in my life? All right. And one quick note, just to finish here, right? That's a system I want you to think about in your life, and with your the solutions that you're thinking about. Being able to make that reference point to the mind, back to the gut, is a very helpful thing to stay stable as well. Okay, so what is the biotic stack? Okay, so probiotics are probably something you've heard about, right? When I first started in this universe, it was all about, I remember we were training athletes for, professional athletes, sprinters, basketball stars, baseball stars, and often they would want to lose weight, or they would want to find a way into a performance sweet spot. And we would feed them probiotics, and we would say, okay, there's this one, you get it at Whole Foods, or you get it at your local grocery store, and it's in the refrigerated aisle, and it's got a bajillion microbes, and they say that it's the best, et cetera, et cetera. And fast forward a decade, we weren't wrong, but we didn't have what we have now. And what I mean by that is we're learning that it's actually not the high CFU counts that make the biggest difference. The reason there was high CFU counts for probiotics in the past is because most of those microbes are dead. And that's why they put them in the fridge. They say, hey, the probiotics in the fridge, those are the ones that are quote unquote alive. And you need to keep them alive, because microbes that are introduced to heat or moisture tend to awaken. And if they're not in your gut microbiome, then they perish, and that's it. Now, the cool thing here is that when a probiotic, or when a microbe that's alive dies, okay, it has cell fragments. And those cell fragments are actually called postbiotics. Maybe a new term for you, or maybe you've already researched what a postbiotic is. But that's a dead microbe, and that's cell pieces and parts. And we're at a new place in the science where we're learning that postbiotics are actually a really, really important role. That's the pharmaceutical experience your gut microbiome has. The microbes are not only ingesting the prebiotics, the food that they eat, but they're also, quote unquote, giving to you, the human, all of these wonderful things: vitamins, short chain fatty acids, polysaccharides, like the list goes on. Any type of micronutrient that you can think about, actually, those micronutrients, a lot of them come from the microbes that live in your body, right? So this is the biotic stack. You have the prebiotics that feed the probiotics, and you have the probiotics that produce the postbiotics. And this is important because not only are we trying to create restoration and balance in our bodies in order to have the ability to train harder, do better, but also have a balanced life, but this world is starting to evolve into, if you have the right probiotics in your body, you don't need a lot of them. You need to be consistent with the ones that are human native, meaning they're stable. And that stability means they last through the digestive tract. It means that they flourish in your human body. And the cool thing here is that the right human native probiotics actually benefit other strains. It's like having a friend group, and the microbes have friend groups that are beneficial, meaning they coexist with the other microbes that are beneficial. And if those are the beneficial microbes that are diverse in your microbiome, right, they're going to starve out the microbes that don't belong. And so the biotic stack is something that you're going to want to pay attention to, not only from a supplement space, but also in your understanding of how am I absorbing the food that my body, that I'm ingesting? Are the microbes in my digestive tract getting the right foods? Is it the right environment for them? And then do you have enough of those microbes that are then producing the postbiotics all the time, right? And so if you're an athlete, maybe it's like, hey, I take B vitamins because I want to have more energy, right? But actually, if you have the right microbes in your body and your gut microbiome, you're producing B vitamins all the time. And your body is going to be able to regulate that, meaning it knows how much you need. It knows what it needs in order to support your unique fingerprint. And once again, that's really important. So there's a bit of I'm learning about myself and I'm being consistent with a new protocol that's going to support my human anatomy, my unique human anatomy. Okay, so once again, really quickly, right? Prebiotics are the feeders. They fuel the microbes. They come from dietary sources, right? Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, right? You could say, okay, those are like the plant-based ones, but also, right, there are microbes that do support animal fat, animal protein, and help us create the amino acids, help us to digest the sugars, the fibers, and support brain health, heart health, skin health, kidney health, skin health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so the importance here is that you are looking at your life and saying, I want to make a change. I want to be better. I want to perform better. I want to perform at my best. Variety and diversity are good. And so that could be, hey, I'm diverse in my training patterns, which allows me to be a better athlete, right? I'm diverse in my gut microbiome nutrition, which allows me to stay more resilient and more balanced. And diversity doesn't have to look like 60 to 80 things in the week. Diversity could be, hey, I'm going to experiment with bringing a new nutrient into my life. I'm going to see how my body responds. And then I'm going to start learning about myself. Neutrality is really important to look at our lives, look at where we're feeding ourselves, how we're performing, and where we can not just dial things in, but where we can give space for our bodies to do what it already knows best. Believe it or not, your body, all the DNA strands, right? That's instructions on how to be your best self. And so the gut microbiome is your symbiotic relationship. And so prebiotics feed that relationship. Probiotics and postbiotics, right, are the essential suppliers of that synergistic approach to health. Okay, so what does gut training exposure look like? Okay, if we're saying we're going to train our gut, what are the actual steps? What's the plan for us to create some resilience? Okay, so like I just said, we want to start with what is affecting our world. Hey, when I eat eggs, I have to spend 5 minutes in the restroom and it doesn't look nice. Okay, great. I'm writing it down. Okay, where are the other things? Hey, I noticed that if I do my exercise protocol in this specific way, my digestion, I get a little bloated. Okay, great. Not to say that you need to change that right away or that you need to fix it, but you're noticing at what is your tolerance level and how do you navigate getting to a space that you can start from? Because that's really important, right? If we throw the kitchen sink at our bodies and we say, hey, we're going to train and we're just going to go at it until we fail, that may not be the best approach in getting to that high performance level. In the same way, if we just start throwing fruits and vegetables at our body without noticing which ones create certain challenges, like for me, it's garlic. When I eat garlic, my respiratory system is having trouble handling that. As I have worked at my gut microbiome, that has supported my ability to not just handle garlic, but also bring it back into my diet. And so there is a process here. And so what that leads to here, right? One variable practice. I want to focus at one variable at a time, right? Be patient with yourself. Know that you're moving in the right direction. And if you do have to take a step back, right? That step back isn't something that you have to go all the way to the beginning. Okay. Here we want to repeat sessions. And so if we're thinking about it from our performance athletic standpoint, repeating sessions is about repeating workouts or getting better at our workouts. Here, it's about the dosage and also what are we throwing at our gut microbiomes to make sure that we are kind of building this resilience over time. And then you want to think about your relevant workouts. Okay, hey, if I'm performance athletic driven, today I'm doing a 5-set, maximum squat. The next time I'm going to try and increase my weight by 5 pounds or 10 pounds. Right here, it's about, once again, like what is the direction? Do I need to take a break? Like often in the training world, you get this curve, and that curve is going to shoot at first, then it's going to come down a little bit, and then it's going to go back up. And so if you find yourself in a downward curve location, that's where you're going to want to track what you're doing, understand when I go down, and to not get angry with yourself, right? But to notice, maybe I need to back off a little bit, reduce the dosage, or maybe that's the chance to increase the dosage for the prebiotic as a way of supporting even more growth as you go through these phases. Okay, and so as an athlete, you're thinking about this in kind of 3 to 6 week chunks. As an individual who just wants to support their gut microbiome in general, right? It's all about consistency. And so here we say there's a 3-week minimum. We want to build gut resilience every day in small, repeatable steps and deviate or pivot as we start to notice what changes our bodies are going through. And so we recommend at Element Longevity that the individual have the right microbes in their system and the feeding of beneficial microbes at the same time in order to have this synergistic effect as we're increasing our resilience. And so really quickly, for those of you who are just listening, right, we want to start 3 weeks out at least. We want to be consistent. We want to build resilience. We want to think long term. And if we do want to go deeper or we need to go deeper, then maybe a gut microbiome test is important at this stage. And what that's going to be able to do is it's going to help you personalize that protocol deeper and deeper into your unique fingerprint. And I'll get into some of the reasons that you may want to do that here in a second. Okay, so at Element Longevity, we have what's called the Daily Essentials. Some of you may already be on it and just learning about the gut microbiome. Maybe you're interested in kind of going deeper into this protocol that we have. And so the 2 main products, right? We have the Probiotics, that's Element Base, and then we have the Element Rhythm, which is our clinically dosed prebiotic. Now, when we think of prebiotic, I just want to note on this. One thing that's different about our prebiotic is it was actually clinically studied and has been through the rigmarole, so to speak, with everyday individuals, both athletes at a very high performance base, as well as individuals who have very, very poor gut microbiomes. And the results are the same. But I want to bring that in because something we're also noticing is that there's actually not as much fiber in these supplements as we used to prescribe for prebiotics. And the reason is because the science is starting to lean more towards energizing the bacterias, the microbes that are beneficial, and less about shoving a lot of fiber into the gut microbiome. Because if we go back to our concept of the gut barrier, right? If we have fibers coming through a gut barrier that is weak, then it's kind of like sandpaper to the gut microbiome, and that's not going to be beneficial either. We may have spotty results. We may have success one day and not success the next. And so our particular clinically dosed prebiotic is actually full of B vitamins and folate and tryptophan and biotin and a couple other low bloat fibers like oat bran and acacia gum, which support the energizing of those cells, not just trying to feed them their specific nutrient. And so then we have Element Base, which is our probiotic, our signature Bifidobacterium adolescentis. Bifidobacterium adolescentis is considered the king, queen of the human upper digestive tract. B. adolescentis has been shown to be incredibly prevalent in healthy individuals over the age of 40 and incredibly depleted for individuals who consider themselves to be unhealthy almost at any stage in life. And so if you draw a bell curve like this, Bifidobacterium adolescentis peaks at its main area at about age 40, 45. But the other microbes are very, very low. And so the cool thing about B. adolescentis is it pulls the diversity up. And that's why you don't need such a high dosage of it. In element base, we've got 4 billion CFU of B. adolescentis. It's a very potent microbe. And then you have rhythm, which is the prebiotics supporting everyday consistent nutrition. And so we call these our daily essentials, but really what it is the ability to get consistent nutrition in a very clinical dose and very specific to the science of how the gut microbiome is breaking down all these digestive enzymes and the nutrients and feeding the microbial universe. All right. So to take away from today, if there's something you've learned that you want to share after that, I would love to hear it. But like if there's the three main things that we want to think about when we're not only trying to perform at our highest level, but we're also trying to give ourselves the ability to stay resilient throughout challenges and stress, it really comes down to consistency. I've helped thousands of individuals in the last couple of years around this protocol and this approach. And the number one thing, like, that people kind of get tripped up on is, well, maybe if I just take it once a week, or maybe, I do it for a month or a couple of weeks and then I stop, right? If you're already at a good microbiome level, and really the only way to know that is by taking a gut microbiome test, if you're really at that level, then yes, you might get away with that. But even as someone who's been on this protocol for 2 years, I crave it. It's important that I get these nutrients into my life. And I will share that has drastically reduced my supplement cabinet bill every month, right? So if you're taking B vitamins on a regular basis, if you're just trying to get like the generalized supplementation, I'm not saying it's 100 to 100, but you will find that if you just feed your gut microbiome and balance it, you get to create all the nutrients that you should be creating in life. You don't need to constantly be pulling, tons of supplementation. It's really about consistency with a great probiotic and a great prebiotic. That helps you build resiliency with a minimum of 3 weeks up to an event. Just like really going into dialing in that training block before your next race or your next cycle or whatever you're training for. And then if you need to go deeper, hey, Darren, right, I'm trying everything, but it's still not working, or I want to go to the next level. I want to really dive in and learn about my personal gut microbiome, my unique fingerprint, right? Then you're going to want to take a gut microbiome test to have that precision. We do offer personalized supplementation based off of that gut microbiome test. That doesn't mean that we share a list of, 1,000 foods that you should and should not be eating. What it is it's actually the prebiotic in a more dialed in form specifically to you. That's not for everyone, but if you are someone who's having challenges trying to figure out the science, trying to figure out how to make positive changes to your gut microbiome, that might be something that you would be interested in.